The NFL trade deadline is only a few weeks away, and as the New York Jets currently hold an 0-5 record, there is no doubt that the team will potentially look to move off of some players on expiring deals, some veterans, and a player who has been commonly linked to the trade market and someone the Jets could deal ahead of October's trade deadline is running back Breece Hall. And speaking to reporters in London earlier today, Hall addressed the trade rumors. Will Hall be in New York post-trade deadline? We'll talk about that and much more, all coming up here on a Friday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by the great Joe Blewett of Jets X Factor, baby. Let's roll.
This is NY Flight Jets Talk with Connor Long. NY Flight Jets Talk. We're talking Jets, 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 Jets. NY Flight Jets Talk with special guests. NY Flight Jets Talk. Here's your host, Connor Long. Jets, 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 Jets.
What is going on, New York Jet fans? Hello, everyone. Welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk as we come to you guys live right here on this Friday evening, October 10th, 2025. Make sure you all drop down below, smash that like button, hit subscribe. That is the free way to help us grow and support us right here on the channel, chasing 3,000 subscribers. So be sure to support us. Smash the like button. Hitting subscribe is the free way to help us grow. The paid way, you see it on the scrolling ticker down below. You can get into our membership raffle. Every $2 super chat or gifted membership will give you an opportunity to win some super cool prize. Again, info on that on the scrolling ticker down below. Welcome in, everyone, to NY Flight Jets Talk. I'm your host, Connor Long. Shout out to everyone in the building for all your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the chat. We will react to those. You could call into the show with the link that is pinned in the video description down below. We appreciate the hell out of you guys, and we appreciate your support, as always, right here on the program. And joining me right now here on the show, my colleague, my coworker over at JetsXFactor.com, the Jets film czar himself, Joe Blewett, baby, gracing us with his presence right here on the show. Joe, last we talked, it was pre-draft. We had some mixed expectations on the team. We were talking about, will they go Armand Membu? Will they go Tyler Warren? They land Membu, and although we had a rough week 5 matchup, he hasn't been the main problem as to why the Jets are 0-5, Joe. We sit here, the Jets are 0-5. You couldn't have asked for a worse start.
Yeah, I think it's him, McNamara, Folk, Briggs. There's a few guys who are not the problem, but Membu has been good. Few mental lapses, one on the goal line last week, the week before, forgetting to come off the line of scrimmage and allows a pressure immediately. I don't know if it was actually a sack or not. I honestly forget. I'd rather pour bleach into my eyes than watch this film consistently, but here I am doing it every single week and putting up 30, 40, 50 plays on Twitter, whatever it may be. Really it comes down to I'm sure we'll go in a bunch of different directions, but the one thing we were promised was a team we could be proud of, and I don't think we've seen anything close to that. So hopefully player meetings, all this stuff, they'll at least fight, at the minimum. So hopefully we at least get to the point where we could be at least proud of this team and show some hope for the future.
Absolutely, and I think where I'll start before we pull up the clip of Breece Hall reacting to the rumors of him potentially being traded ahead of the trade deadline, obviously at the end of this month. You recently put out a video or review for us over at JetsXFactor.com where it's titled, "Who Deserves the Label of an Aaron Glenn Type Player?" Because that term was thrown around a ton this offseason, Joe. Oh, this guy's a Glenn guy. This guy's a Glenn guy. For those who didn't see your video, which could be found over, of course, at the Jets X Factor YouTube channel, who are the top guys, in your opinion, watching the All-22 back after every single game, who deserve that label of an Aaron Glenn player?
Yeah, being realistic, I was grasping at straws a little bit just for some positivity with that video. Really, I think it's the players who are just playing well at this point. But I think especially even after I made the video, it's two guys this week in the media, and it's Q and Garrett Wilson in terms of having the right mindset to turn this team around. I think a JJ could be one of those guys as well with his mindset, saying that this team has too much talent to play their way they're playing. So I think those are 3 staples, 3 guys you want to build around. I'm not necessarily willing to trade Q. Obviously you listen to offers, but I don't want to really hear it. mentioning that I actually want to see a little bit more leadership from Sauce Gardner, and maybe that's why he didn't get the C on his chest. But stop deflecting blame and take some blame for yourself, Sauce. Even though good player. And then past that in the video, I also put Will McDonald. I think he's getting a little bit unfairly criticized. One of the problems is when the ball is out immediately because guys are blowing coverages and there's nobody within 10 yards of the receivers. The ball is out quick, and it's hard for the defensive lineman to get there. As a common thing on Twitter, like, oh, nobody got there even once and all this stuff in the film last week. But Will McDonald beat the left tackle at least twice just cleanly with a spin move and was in Dak's face almost immediately. Just the ball was out so quickly because there's so many blown coverages. So, I would say specifically, like in terms of at least the mindset to turn the game around, the team around, not even best, but kind of the best as well. JJQ and Garrett Wilson are guys you want to build around. You got to have some guys who are going to, deliver the message to the locker room of Aaron Glenn.
Absolutely. And, you talk about Jermaine Johnson, and with a player like him, he had a, fine start to the year, obviously going against the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1, his first game back from a torn Achilles injury he suffered week 2 of last year against the Tennessee Titans. I think where this team has felt JJ, the most and his impact as a player is when he hasn't been out on the field, because you look at the backups out there, Braden McGregor, Michael Clemens, Tyler Barron, with the exception of, maybe a nice Tyler Barron run stop from here or there against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 3. Those guys really aren't NFL players, to say at the end of the day. So you look at the numbers. Actually, I think Michael Nania found this stat for us over at JetX Joe that he pulled up. I believe that McGregor, Barron, and Clemens have had a combined 7 missed tackles, just as many pressures as they've compiled over the year total. Yeah. So that's the missed tackle to pressure ratio for those 3 guys, just truly highlighting how poor those guys are. And the fact that this team had all offseason, this team had players like Zadarius Smith, players like Jadeveon Clowney on the open market, and this team insisted that, Michael Clemens, the big muscular guy, we're going to turn him into, I think this coaching staff thought they could do more in year 1 when it comes to changing the developmental trajectory for a lot of these players, a guy like Clemens in particular, than they really could overall. So I think that's obviously a huge glaring hole on the edge. So I completely agree with your Jermaine Johnson assessment right there. Joe, I want to pull up this clip. Breece Hall speaking to reporters in London today regarding his status in New York. Can he be traded? We'll see what Breece Hall had to say. Some interesting comments. So I want to get everyone's thoughts here.
Building up about the possibility of you getting traded away. How do you experience that?
This is probably my 5th month dealing with this now. So at this point, it is what it is. I'm here. I want to be here. I love being a New York Jet and everything. But at the end of the day, I don't control what goes on. I only control what I do on the field and how I handle my business off the field. So, for me, it's all about, like I said, servicing my teammates and coaches the best way I can, and letting God handle whatever else. I'm every day I come out, like I said, I'm servicing my teammates and coaches, glorifying God, and letting whatever happens after that.
Now, Joe, Breece Hall, obviously a very up and down 2024 campaign last year, as you know firsthand, going back and watching the All-22 game in and game out. And I think he's had a really strong start to the season, obviously, with the exception of that costly fumble against Dallas last week that really broke the game open. The score was 10-3 in the second quarter, Joe, and then you blink going into halftime, and Dallas is a 22-3 lead over the New York Jets. So obviously, with the exception of that error from Breece, I think he's had a really, really solid year. I'll just pose this to you straight up. Is Breece Hall a New York Jet post-trade deadline in a few weeks?
I don't think so. I think it's a thing where the Jets, where they are in their rebuild, retool, it's probably going to take 2-3 years for them to really, be competing. And what is Breece Hall going to be in 2 or 3 years? Past that, I think he's lost some explosion. I don't know what his explosion numbers are, this year exactly, but that play in the Cowboys game where he almost broke it for a touchdown, I think in his rookie year, he probably does take that for a touchdown. And Breece Hall was always a guy who lived off his explosion. He's a guy who's going to get you 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, 80 yards. Like that's what he was. Yeah. I don't think he has that same explosion. And again, I'm just gonna be honest with what I see. I think he's been plus average. Do I think he is what he was his rookie year? I don't. And if you look at a lot of the blocks, like a lot of it's, to me, the offensive line creating these holes. More so than it is the running backs really creating and doing a lot of good things. Now, he has been better with his vision. He has been better putting his head down, breaking some arm tackles. But you look at some of the runs, you could fit a bus in those gaps with Breece Hall. So there's been some plays that he's been making, but I think it's much more so the offensive line than it is any one of the running backs. Because even look at Braylon Allen. I don't know exactly what his stats are. I'm not a stats guy. You know that. I really don't care. But with Braylon Allen, the last game he was playing, he got like 5 or 6 yards per carry, whatever it was. And a lot of it was the offensive line. He'll put his head down and drive for extra yards and stuff like that, but it wasn't great vision. It wasn't, tackle breaking ability. Like Breece still isn't breaking a lot of tackles minus arm tackles. It's a lot of just hitting the hole the offensive lineman is opening for him, which obviously he has to be able to see those holes and hit them. But I don't think it's a thing where Breece Hall makes or breaks this team. He has been doing a little bit more in the receiving game this year, which is nice to see. But I just don't see him. And people compare him like, oh, it's like the Panthers getting rid of McCaffrey or the Giants getting rid of Barkley. Like, come on, like let's be realistic here. He was never at that level of one of those guys. So I think he's been plus average. And I think on a team that's ready to compete, you could re-sign a plus average running back. But I just don't see it with where they are in their rebuild. Now, if they want to, tag him, whatever the number is for running backs, 10, 11, $12 million, something like that, fine. I just have a feeling that Breece Hall thinks he's a little bit better than he is, and he may outprice himself. If they want to keep him around, they have a ton of money in cap space next year. So if they want to keep him, I wouldn't hate it necessarily. I just don't think he makes or breaks this run game. It's not Breece Hall creating the yardage. I think, again, it's much more so the offensive line. So a little bit indifferent, but I think he will probably end up getting traded, especially if they 0-6, 0-7, 1-7, whatever exactly it's going to be before. What is it after? Is it after week 8's the bye week or week 9? Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe if they start competing, then you never know. But I think he's going to outprice himself, honestly, just based kind of on feel.
Well said there. And, when you talk about Breece Hall, he is on pace right now to set career highs in rushing yards, receiving yards, and I think yards per carry it is. So he's certainly been off to a hot start this year. And I was the biggest advocate. You know this, Joe, from us obviously going back and forth to this team. I said this offseason, you get a 3rd-round pick for Breece Hall. I was all for moving off of him, especially the season that he had last year. And it wasn't more so for me that, the numbers weren't as great as 2023. It was me going back and watching the film and just looking at the lackluster vision. And, you talk about his rookie year, his 2023 season, where he was that true home run hitter, that guy, could break off a 60, a 70-yard run for you. And he completely lost that step last year. We're seeing a little of it this year, but obviously not to the same capacity that we saw in 2023. And obviously his short-lived rookie season. I don't think you're getting a 3rd-round pick for Breece Hall right now. I think if you were to trade him, you get maybe, a 5th and a 6th, a 5th and 2 6ths, something like that. I don't want to move on from Breece Hall right now. I think this is a decision that the Jets are going to push towards the offseason. And I personally think that would be the wise move, because let's also keep in mind here that, the Jets trade away Breece Hall at the deadline. Braylon Allen, they said out 8 to 12 weeks ahead of the Dallas game. 8 to 12 weeks, assume the Jets season is well over by then. The Jets will most likely just shut Braylon down for the rest of the year and keep him healthy there. So if the Jets trade Breece Hall at the deadline, who are your running backs? Is it Isaiah Davis, Kene Nwangu, Khalil Herbert? And I'm a huge Isaiah Davis fan, Joe. I'm a bigger Isaiah Davis guy than I am a Braylon Allen fan. But do you really want to get put in a position where
correctly
is your running back one and Kene Nwangu and Khalil or competing for big time touches? That's my big thing here.
I think something also that's maybe a little bit overlooked by people is how does it affect the mental of your team? Like Breece Hall is one of those players. He was one of the big draft picks of 2022. And, maybe he's not a leader to us, but, I think guys like Sauce and Garrett and Q and all these guys hold him in high regard. And if you're trading those players, it's like, okay, we're tapping out. So the coaches and the GM also have to think about how it affects the roster mentally. Because you don't want to just tap out on the season. So it's something important to think about. I think you start the conversation, like you said, 5th, 6th round pick, just ride it out with the rest of the season for him. At that point, there was dart throws. If you're talking about a 4th and change, I think you start to pique my interest a little bit. A 3rd and change, I'm doing it. A 4th and change, I think it's a discussion, because realistically, what the Jets should do is, talk to him. Listen, hey, we're looking to maybe extend you after the season. Or even now, you've had a good year. We respect you, whatever. And if he's coming back with these absurd numbers, then get rid of him for whatever you can get, because this season is kind of a wash. So if they're close in their negotiation numbers, then hey, yeah, ride it out with him. If he's so far gone where he thinks he's McCaffrey, he deserves, $17 million a year or something like that, whatever it may be, then absolutely not. But if he's close to 10, 11, 12, okay, for a year or two, see how it rides out. I'm okay with it. Again, I don't think he's a backbreaker. I think when people talk about the run game, they're kind of referring to him as like, oh, he's making it. He's not running behind a bad offensive line. That's for damn sure. They've been struggling in the pass game a little bit at times, but in terms of the run game, they've been pretty good. So when they're not getting blitzed, by 9 guys, there's no gaps. So yeah, I think you start to entertain it like a fourth and some change, but I don't think they're just going to be able to dump him for nothing. And again, talk to him. It's something that we're not privy to. We don't know what the conversations are with him, but if he's outpricing himself, then obviously you're more willing to trade him.
Certainly, and I think that was very well said there, obviously, by you, Joe. And I want to move over to the defensive side of the ball, someone who re-upped on a 3-year, $70 million contract before last season, Michael Carter II, someone who had an injury-riddled 2024 campaign. And personally, based on what I saw from MC2 the 2 years prior from that truly earned him that lucrative extension, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I said, all right, he dealt with a ton of injuries. Let's see what he could do in 2025, and obviously the early returns this year are nothing short of discouraging. Him, Brandon Stevens, Andre Cisco, Tony Adams, the whole secondary, and even Sauce Gardner at times, as much as I hate to say it, have been liabilities in coverage, and MC2 has been that one glaring issue, and obviously he's out with a concussion now for the next few weeks. Jarvis Brownlee, we saw him make his Jets debut, his first start in the slot last week. He's going to get a crack at that role again, obviously, the next few weeks here. Do you think the Jets should just move on for MC2 this offseason? He could be a cap casualty. He has no more guaranteed money left on his deal. And if he keeps playing like this is now year 2. This is now year 2 of seeing this. Obviously, his first coaching change. Does he fit Glenn's scheme? I mean, I know you had your concerns regarding MC2 at times, but I couldn't imagine you expected him to be this bad to open the year.
Yeah, sometimes people just fall off a cliff and it's almost unexplainable. Like I said, and I kind of always like go back to Tyron Smith. Like I watched Tyron Smith in 2023, and he was amazing. He was really, really good still. Came to the Jets, different scheme, different team, new year, and he just fell off. And part of the problem with Michael Carter II is not only obviously, the play on the field, but like you said, it's the injuries. So if he's not playing well and he can't play, obviously we're in a tough spot there. So I think he's been injured. I think being injured and being in a new system has hurt him, because there's just some mental mistakes I've never seen Michael Carter II make. So I think he's thinking too much, or the injury is starting to affect him, where he's overcompensating for it and trying to make plays too quickly or not, or whatever it may be. But he's fallen off. Cisco was one I called from the jump. I watched this film, like, I don't know how they pay this guy $10 million, and he's not a good tackler, and he's risky in coverage. That one hasn't worked out. Tony Adams has been dreadful. With Michael Carter II, maybe it's a thing where obviously when he comes back, you ride him out in the slot a little bit, see what he has. Because I know it's not overly friendly to get rid of him in terms of the cap numbers next year. But he played some safety at Duke, so you have Tony Adams struggling there. Could you move into a safety spot and see how he performs there, and maybe he really ups his game, and that's a new spot for him, and then you can ride him out there next year or the next 2 years, over the length of his contract, whatever it is. I forget exactly how many years he has left, but maybe that's something you try. Sauce, like I said, he has to take more accountability. He has to stop getting beat on third down, getting beat for touchdowns by Pickens, even though he clearly pushed off twice that were both more egregious than Garrett Wilson's the week prior, but we're the Jets, so we don't get those calls. Same thing with Ibuka, Mike Evans, all those plays that Sauce got pushed off on. So I think Sauce has been a little bit of the victim of the circumstances. The guy's getting some push offs on him, to be completely transparent. But with Sauce, and it's more of a technical thing, he needs to be more in control of his feet. His feet are not in control all the time. When your feet are in control all the time, you tend to have bigger movements from your lower half. When you have bigger movements from your lower half, you're not attached to the ground. You're not as attached to the ground. You tend to grab because you're not as confident in just your movement. And he's been more grabby. He needs to get more shots into the chest plate of guys and stop grabbing them. And again, just be more sunken into his base, have a wider base, things like that that I'm seeing on film. And that's why I got beat by Darren Waller, even though Waller got 2 hands on, pushed off of him. No call there. Nonetheless. So with that being said, Sauce, I still think he's been good in the last 2 weeks. I'm not saying good for him, good relative to other cornerbacks in the NFL. He's still been solid. But with that being said too, he's also been much more physical in the run game the last 2 games, which is very encouraging, because something he hasn't really done in the past. And then Stevens, first 2 games he was awful. The last 3 weeks he looks like what they signed him to be. Like the last 3 weeks he looks like he's been a decent number 2 corner. That's kind of what his contract indicates. Like $12 million a year for a number 2 in today's NFL is kind of like an average-ish price. So I think he's kind of been that. So I think the corners like Sauce, a little bit disappointing. Stevens has stepped it up. MC2 has been terrible. Maybe you flex him into safety. The safeties have been abysmal,
Well,
all
terrible.
of them. Even and again, Malachi Moore is a 4th round rookie, but when Malachi Moore is coming to the games, he struggled. Now, last week, do you want to put him in even the Bucks game? The Bucks game, one of the first plays he came, or I don't know if it's the first play he came in, but he almost got burned for a 65-yard touchdown. He got beat on a corner route or a sail route. The ball was misthrown by Baker. He missed a tackle in that game, so he could have gotten beat for 100 yards if the ball was connected, and a missed tackle in that game in like 5 reps, whatever he saw, 6, 8, 10, whatever it was, minimal. So he hasn't been good. 4th round rookie, fine. So hopefully change some stuff up again. If Adams continues to struggle, maybe you put Michael Carter second back there, put Brownlee in the slot, and try to change some things up because the combo of Cisco and Adams is probably the worst in the league. And you talk about DNs before too. JJ's coming back, but so far throughout most of the season, our DNs 2, 3, and 4 have to be the worst in the league. That is the worst trio of guys. None of those guys on a good team are rosterable. Michael Clemens is awful. We've seen how many penalties and how many broken containments and how slow he moves. McGregor and Barron have done nothing. A play here, a play there, fine, but overall pretty much nothing. So the defense is in shambles. With that being said, should they be on pace to be the worst, one of the worst Jets defenses, if not the worst of all time? I think they're still on pace to let up the most points ever by a Jets defense. They have too much talent for that. Like, this is not 2020. Enough of the excuses. Now, did I expect the Jets to be 3-2 after 5 games? No, absolutely not. Did I expect them to get blown out in 4 of their 5 games? Lose me with the 1 score crap because they got blown out in all those games. Yeah. They fought back late, fine. No, so the defense has to step up because it's legitimately embarrassing. You had 3 touchdowns last week, pure blown coverages, guys not knowing where to be. The week 1 against Aaron Rodgers, you had 3 blown coverages there. Miami Dolphins are running wide open all over the field. So a big part of that's the safeties, corner, Michael Carter second as well. But Sauce and Stevens, I'll back off them a little bit because they haven't been brutal, especially with Stevens the last 3 weeks. He's actually been pretty solid. Like, has Stevens really been beaten the last 3 weeks on a big play? Not really, He's actually made some plays. PD on Waddle last week, PD on, I forget who we got it on this week as well. So he's been better. Sauce needs to, making $30 million a year. You gotta up your game a little bit, but I still don't think he's been like bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the defense and their struggles as a unit overall, I know you mentioned that this team has talent and they're not like the 2020 Jets where you have, Bradley McDougal starting for you at, safety, and even worse players, Steve McClendon as your starting defensive tackle and guys like
Breece
that.
Hall.
Yeah, Breece Hall is a Lamar Jackson playing 40 snaps a game as a high-end cornerback on your depth chart. However, when you look at, again, the struggles as a whole on this unit, do you attribute it more to, the coaching from Wilkes, the coaching from Glenn, or do you think we just overrated this talent? What do you more attribute that to?
I think fans in general tend to overrate their talent, but we've seen these guys perform well. And I'll be honest with you, Connor, and I've answered, I'm on the Jake Asman show every week too, and I've been asked that question quite a bit. I think it's disingenuous for anybody to say like they 100% know if it's more one or the other, because and there's problems I have with Wilkes. Listen, the blitz is not getting home, and part of the reason the blitz is not getting home, they blitz at one of the higher numbers in the league. I think it's at near the top 10.
38%. I think it's 11th in the league.
Yeah, like 11th or 12th, I think was it. But they get home with, they have the lowest sack percentage or whatever it is on those blitzes. So, like the worst blitzing team when they blitz. And a part of that is one guy's, the blitz team I don't think is overly overly great. But I also think it's the fact that there's blowing so many coverages in the back end that when you take another guy or 2 out of the secondary, they're just wide open holes for guys. So that's been one of my problems. The blitzes, I want to see a little bit more intricate blitz schemes. I would also like to see maybe him call off the dogs a little bit until they can figure their crap out, for lack of a better term. The man coverage, I think, has become predictable on third down. Now people are like, oh, he runs too much man, he runs too much zone. Like realistically, I think you're a numbers guy. They run like 54% man or something like that. Like it's
something like that.
Yeah, it's not like people act like when they only run man. It's like they run man 90% of the time. Like let's be real here. Now it's too predictable in certain situations where you can't just like people like just like with like Kyle Shanahan. Like, oh, it's a zone scheme, running scheme. It's like, yeah, even a heavy zone running scheme will be like 65%. You're still running 35% of power and man blocking and stuff. So I think it's a little bit overrated that people say that, but it's really hard to put my finger on it. One, because I'm not there, right? How are they teaching? Is it effective? How are the players taking to it? Is he emphasizing, continuously, hey, whatever the play is, like last week when Sherwood matched the fullback through like the A gap, and then he's supposed to be in the curl the flat there, and Ferguson takes it for the touchdown on that play. Like he was supposed to be in the curl the flat there, and if Glenn is telling him, hey, curl the flat, curl the flat, curl the flat, curl the flat, don't fall for it, and he goes into the game and matches the fullback and he gets outflanked to the sideline, how is that on Wilkes? It's like I don't want to be like a fence sitter, but it's hard to know unless you're actually sitting there. So I do think when people say, oh, it's one or the other, it's honestly hard to tell because we're not there. We don't know what's going on in the meeting rooms. The thing I would say is these players have played better in the past, so I think it's a little bit on coaching as well. The only thing I'll say with the defense in terms of like overrating their players, I think Sherwood, that contract right off the jump, I was like, he's solid, but I think they're paying him for what they want him to be, not what he's been, because he's never been great in coverage. He's always kind of got lost in traffic. He's a very good tackler and he has good like range, but he's been inconsistent in the run game. And in the pass game, I've seen very few positive plays from the pass game. So I thought it was an overpay from the jump. And he looks like he should be a linebacker 4 or 5 at this point. Like at this point in the season, with the amount of coverage he sees, the 66-yard Williams run completely blew it on that play.
All on him, and the plays up front on the line as well. But yeah, he was that last guy who was right there.
He over pursued the hell out of it.
Some of the angles that he takes as well are just so.
He gets lost in traffic too much. He has to play a little bit more slow footed and let things develop before he just runs in and shoots a gap. And maybe that's him being with Quincy. Quincy's that type of player as well. But he blew that play for a 60, and others did as well. But he was one of the main culprits, if not the main culprit on that play. The Jake Ferguson touchdown, he's completely out of position. That's a blown coverage by him. And then the third touchdown, or one of the other touchdowns, I'm not sure if it was the third or the fourth of the game, but you had Javonte Williams in the flat, and he completely blew that coverage. He was in man coverage on Javonte, and he was nowhere to be found on that play. So he single-handedly led up 3 touchdowns basically that game. So he has been a backup level linebacker at best this season, and that's sad to say for somebody who's making $15 million a year. So he's probably the biggest culprit on defense right now for who's destroying this defense. He's been legitimately dreadful.
Him, and like also you mentioned him being that low on the depth chart, Joe. The Jets have no one there. Who are you going to put in his place? Cam Jones, Mark Robinson, Francisco Mauigoa, who had a few bad plays against Miami, but I think ultimately turned out to have an okay game if you stick and watch all 4 quarters. So yeah, I mean they have no one to replace him, and I like Quincy. I think he's a heavy hitter, and look, I think he plays a big role in this defense as well from a leadership standpoint. They can't pay him because you look at obviously what they gave Sherwood this offseason. The age of Quincy, it's always risky to pay a linebacker at his age a multi-year deal at the price that he's going to want to command. And he's not Fred Warner. Let's be real. I love Quincy. He was in All-Pro for this team 2 years ago. He's not Fred Warner good. He's just not in that level of those, elite linebackers who can play and play at a high level till they're 35, till they're 36 years old. Yeah. That's not who Quincy is. And, he's a guy who potentially they can look to shop at the deadline should he be healthy enough. But, the defense overall, I think you made a great point there about, kind of knowing the difference between coaching and talent. But I think a lot of this talent on this defense is overrated. And I don't think a lot of people wanted to pay Sherwood. Yeah, sure, we can nitpick the contract. But I think if the Jets let Jamie and Sherwood walk this offseason, a ton of fans would have been disappointed. And
Yeah.
I think it would have sent the wrong message overall to the team if they didn't pay Sherwood. So look, if I could go back and do it again, I would have still paid Sherwood. No one could have expected this start to the year where he has gotten a little better these past few weeks, but the first 3-4 weeks of the year, he was literally unplayable. Obviously, he had that bad play against Dallas, but no, I'm saying
3.
yeah, 3. Week 4
Yeah.
is the game where he was like, okay, where there weren't any plays where he was a full liability. But like the first 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks of the season, when everyone really looked at the tape, they were like, all right, yeah, this guy is
Yeah,
unplayable.
and the problem with him and Quincy too is, one, they're both lighter in the pants. You need at least one guy who's a little bit thicker, and 2, they're both risk takers, and it's very volatile. You'll get a couple tackles for loss, but you can't. Yeah, but Sherwood has been at this point too. Like, he's a risk taker. He approaches the line of scrimmage too quickly, and you have 2 linebackers like that. Again, it just makes for a volatile run defense. So I don't think you can re-sign a 29-year-old linebacker. Dude, let's be real. He's gonna be 30 next offseason or whatever exactly it is. But you don't want a linebacker at 30 years old who the main benefit of Quincy is the athleticism, the explosion, the speed. So when is he going to lose that? And again, are you going to invest? How much is he going to demand a year? 12, 13 million, whatever exactly it's going to be. And then you're investing $28 million into your linebacker core with a team who needs receivers and tight ends and safeties and a bunch of stuff. It's just not the proper way to build a team. So even though I like Quincy, I like the explosion he brings. I think he's a better player than Sherwood. He's older. And again, I just don't think it fits with those 2 guys next to each other. So another guy, you look to trade, but again, at that point, are you risking the locker room and all that stuff, which at this point, listen, they quit. Like Sherwood on that other play too. Like he blew the coverage. He quit on that play. He started jogging at the 25-yard line, and he had an angle on Ferguson. So embarrassing level of effort as well from Sherwood, which is really disappointing. So at that point, if they're 0-8, does it even matter if people start to quit? Like, I don't. I know Garrett's not quitting, so build around him. So we'll see. But the linebackers have been gross.
Ladies and gentlemen, smash the like button, hit subscribe. Joe Blewett, Connor Long, right here with you guys on NY Flight Jets Talk. 336 you guys watching us live. We appreciate the support. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Joe, it was great getting to chop it up with you as always right here on the show. I know you got a show over on your Blewett's Blitz show that I will be listening to momentarily over at the JetX YouTube channel. So be sure to plug that and share any final thoughts you have before we wrap things up.
Final thoughts, please God, make it better, because it would be so much easier to just watch the game, turn it off, and then, okay, I show up next Sunday at 1:00. But when you have to talk about it, you got to talk about it. You got to do film breakdowns. You got to put plays up on Twitter, which I don't have to do, but I do. They make it so much harder. So at least give me a glimpse of hope. Again, show me a team that fights at the minimum. A team I could be proud of. A team that's not getting blown out consistently. Again, the Bucs game, they got blown out for the most part. A miracle play by Will McDonald to get back into that game. Miami, they were down 2 touchdowns or whatever into the 4th quarter. Miami took their foot off the gas. Bucs, like I said, stopped blitzing. Cowboys, it was 30-3 going into the 4th or something like that. Whatever the score was.
And then they run up the score in the 4th quarter, and they make it look like it was a 2-possession game. And
exactly. So I just be competitive. Be competitive. Give me a glimpse of hope, because at least in 2020, we knew that, okay, you're going to get one of the quarterbacks, whether it be Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. Like, we had some hope there, and we knew that. We knew that Gase was going to be fired. So, like, there was a glimpse of hope, moving forward. But this is the darkest it's been, because this team is too talented, and I'm not overrating talent. It should be a playoff team or anything like that, but they should be. And there's a reason we all predicted 6, 7, 8 wins. This team is not the worst team in the NFL level. So please God, compete at the minimum, and then past that, Joe RB31 on Twitter, Jets X Factor, all that stuff. I'm sure some people, at least most people, know. So catch me there. Going to stream in about 3 minutes from now. So I'll see everybody over there. But appreciate the invite as always.
Of course, Joe, great getting to chop it up with you. I will throw the link to Joe's upcoming stream, of course, in the chat, so you guys can head right over there. We're going to wrap up now, and of course, you guys can find my written work over at jetsxfactor.com, my opinions in the written form of this team. Again, jetsxfactor.com. Download the app, of course, if you haven't already. Anyways, thank you all for joining us. I mean, no fan base like this, Joe. A team is 0-5 and getting killed week in and week out, and they still come in every day and support the channel.
Yeah.
Jet fans are built like no other, to put it lightly. You guys are the best. We appreciate the support. As always, for Joe, I'm Connor saying have a great rest of your evening, everyone. And as always, JTS, baby. Jets, Jets, Jets. Peace out, folks.